Holy Spirit, Lord of light, from thy clear celestial height, thy pure beaming radiance give. Come thou, Father of the poor, come with treasures which endure. Come thou, light of all that live, thou of all consolers best, thou the soul's delightsome guest, dost refreshing peace bestow. Thou in toil art comfort sweet, pleasant coolness in the heat, solace in the midst of woe. Light immortal, light divine, visit thou these hearts of thine, and our inmost being fill. If thou take thy grace away, nothing pure in man will stay. All his good is turned to ill. Heal our wounds, our strength renew. On our dryness pour thy dew. Wash the stains of guilt away. Bend the stubborn heart and will. Melt the frozen, warm the chill. Guide the steps that go astray. Thou on those who evermore thee confess and thee adore, in thy sevenfold gifts descend. Give them comfort when they die. Give them life with thee on high. Give them joys that never end. Amen. All right, so if you remember the arc of our course, we spent the beginning speaking a lot about problems that keep us from a truly philosophical reflection on ethics. So if we began, it was kind of like this first quarter here, we're looking at things like materialism, relativism, individualism. We're trying to look at the sources of it, saying that these things are actually the obstacles. And what hopefully you've been able to glean from that is that these obstacles to intellectual reflection are actually, all of them, a type of perversion of a true use of reason. At their heart, the thing I want you to kind of like remember, because there's a million ways to do this, the thing I want you to kind of remember is that for today, the reason why all of these exist is because we have lost confidence in our capacity to know truth. Lost confidence in our capacity to know truth. A sign of this is our inability to judge. It's unreal. Is it a male or is it a female? Is it a violent action or is it not? Is it a winner or is it a loser? There's no such things as losers. There's no such things as boys. There's no such things as girls. There's no such things. It's ridiculous. So we're just walking around with this kind of thought. Well, wait a second. Why can't I judge? Why can't I say what a thing is? The ability to judge, the Greek word to judge is actually krenein in Greek. And it actually, this is the sign, Aristotle says, of the intelligence. It's its ability to discern, to judge, in the sense of being able to discern something. The more deftly one discerns, the more the keener the intelligence. You'll know a person's intelligence not by their memory, not by their vocabulary, but by their penetration. This discernment is this ability to penetrate, so to speak, deftly. It's like wielding a knife, carving a turkey. It's amazing. You just get in there and you just nail it perfectly. That's what some people are able to do with their brains. And that's the sign of intelligence. Every human being can, and a more intelligent person is able to look at that situation and get to the heart of it and discern, no, that's not what they mean. And this is the way to operate. The more like finesse is required, the more intelligence is required. Which is why jobs that are more complicated have that a requirement for greater intelligence. So, this is one sign of that. We live in a society that's completely incapable of that. Well, what will happen to a society incapable of judgment? It's like, what will happen is that it'll become a slave of the thoughts of others. Once I lose the capacity to know truth, therefore, I surrender my freedom. It's so ridiculous. Because in the name of freedom, that is that you don't bother me and that I don't bother you, we surrender our freedom. And the reason for that is because I surrender my freedom, because freedom requires a common goal. A common goal requires a common capacity to know it. This requires a common intelligence. If I don't have a common goal, then your idea, your opinion, if you are more powerful, will win over mine. And most people just sell it out and watch Lady Gaga at the halftime at the Super Bowl, acting like this is somehow an acceptable demonstration of human art. You know, and it's why, because she's out there. It was like, that's what's so cool about those positions. Whoever they put up there, everyone will watch. It's like, oh, who are we supposed to watch? It's absolutely crazy. So then the person who wants to shape the minds of the culture will just have the power to choose the halftime entertainment at the Super Bowl. Imagine if they put a bluegrass band up there. Bluegrass would make a huge hit back. Everyone would be like, that's the coolest thing ever. And they'd be up there demonstrating bluegrass band. Or what if they did a halftime show being some sort of amazing, I don't know, violinist who's just going crazy? Like, we would have a whole different feel about what we're supposed to be doing. Instead, it's Lady Gaga with 200 drums. So it's like, wow, that's really something. That's really something. When you hear people attacking truth, always remember you're about to put me into tyranny. Because if I don't know what's right or wrong, I will let someone else tell me. And either I'll sell myself out, because then I get Lady Gaga, or I am repressed and thrown into prison, one way or the other. Social prison, isolation. We have to go and recapture this. Okay, so all of these, though, the biggest reason for this philosophically, I know I'm kind of like summarizing, but it's important. This biggest reason for this philosophically today is the fact that we have replaced reason with modern science. There's nothing wrong with modern science. I always have to say this because then everyone flips out and they're like, you said science was wrong. And you're just like, you guys are absolutely ridiculous. Modern science is wonderful, beautiful, good. We're so happy. We dance for joy. But it does not replace reason because it does not adequate with reason. It's not adequate. It's not the same thing. What is the difference? Is modern science only accepts what is measurable. That's it.
Well, that was in that document, too.
Yep, from the Pope. And there are many things that cannot be measured, but that still exist. Things like dignity. Things like femininity. Things like justice. Things like honor. Try to measure honor. You can't measure honor. So science is like, well, we can't really talk about that. That's just basically, so whatever. If you replace reason with science, you have now restricted the scope of your world. And you reduced, what you end up doing is saying that philosophy is dead and that the only true way out for this world is math. So there's that famous quote by Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was here's his name. How many guys know who he is?
Yeah, the astronomer guy.
Yeah, astronomer guy. He asked, how much is a human being worth? Is the answer $12.70. He took a human being and he said, okay, how much nitrogen, how much calcium, how much, and then he went to the market and he said, there you go. I'm like, that sounds like a Nazi. So, now he wasn't meaning that, but what he was trying to show is, he was demonstrating, was this worldview. And it's what enabled the Nazis to do what they did. And it will happen again. We have to fight against this craziness. And the way you have to fight against it is what you're being formed here in SJI. But so the basic things I want you to get is that we don't think anymore because we don't think that we can, except if we measure it. Have you guys ever seen Pink Floyd videos?
I know Pink Floyd, but I haven't seen their videos.
This is where taking German classes really helped me.
The Wall?
German Expressionism. It is a weird, dark kind of thing, but it's really cool. The art of the German Expressionists was very prophetic. I don't know why they nailed it like they did, and I don't even really like it, but it was a social protest movement where they were trying to make a point about the beginning of the machine and the Industrial Revolution and how that was changing their humanity. And they did it in out loud. It's so funny because we think that Lady Gaga is just so cool. Like, man, she's cutting edge. You're like, she's so weak compared to some of these expressions. So the German Expressionism would be like a Pink Floyd video where you have all the people marching, and then they go into a machine, and the machine crashes them, you know. Well, they were doing that in 1910, 1915, 1918, 1925. This is where Edmund Munch's The Scream, where he's like, and all the air and the reality's bent. Mm-hmm. That was German Expressionism. But sometimes it's even more violent. I mean, it's so violent you don't even like to look at it. But what they were saying is that this is what's coming on the world. And it was amazing because it kind of had its heyday during the Weimar Republic. So after World War I, when it went down, after the war finished, and everyone was saying peace and prosperity, all these writers and these artists started expressing something, almost like they felt that something was wrong. It's the artist as prophet. I really recommend you taking a look at it and doing some of this stuff, because what's amazing about when you see what they say is that their big thing was looking at the loss of humanity in the presence to a mechanized world. You can look at a book that you should all read called The Brave New World.
I have that.
By Aldous Huxley.
I was reading it in the last bookstore we were at.
Yeah. And he basically prophesies exactly what we're living. The creation of human beings in what do they call those big buildings? Fabrik.
Like the kids
Actually, the German word is in my head.
The kids are raised.
What do you say? Fabrik. What is a fabrik in English? It's not really good. A plant in plants. What were you going to say, Regina?
Oh, a factory, because that's what it was like. The kids
Factories.
came
That's
out,
what it is.
and were raised by like robots, and that way they all thought exactly the same.
And so he goes a little bit crazy, but just as a side comment, there's an interview you can watch on 60 Minutes with Aldous Huxley and Mike Wallace, I think it's 1952. It might be 1962. I think it's 1952. You can watch it on YouTube, and it's really amazing. He's interviewed about this, and Aldous Huxley says, so Mike Wallace was like, why would people give away their freedom? And Huxley says, they'll want to give away their freedom. You see, in the former days, governments controlled people from the outside by armies. The next revolution won't be from the outside. It's far too costly and bloody, and it spurs resistance. It'll instead be from the inside. People will learn, this is his great quote, people will learn to love their servitude. And they would prefer to be slaves than to be free. Because they will be so given such material prosperity that they won't rise above the material. They'll just succumb to it. That's all fueled philosophically by this. Except what's measurable. I'll give you a louder sound. I'll give you sweeter sugar. I'll give you a faster car. I'll give you more comfortable seats. Would you like them heated? All you have to do is just don't try for anything else. And then all of this is religion. This is the heart. This is just relative. What we'll accept as true is how much money you put out at the bank. Put out enough, keep your job. Put out less, lose your job. But I'm a good worker and I'm a great presence. But it's not measurable. See? And so the economy dominates. So I'm describing all of that as a prelude for you to understand why it's so important to do this class. Because what we're going to do now is move into the second part of the arc. And I want to actually teach you ethics. Okay? Questions?
So love is within that reason too. It's not really measurable.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. Love, so how do you define that?
Yeah.
You're like, that's not love that you just hook up and sleep with each other. Says who? It's love to me. No, there's something deeper. It's all relative.
It's just defined as an evolutionary trait.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like, you can measure it by your hormones and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a song from the 60s called Love Potion Number 9.
That song.
When she kissed the cop on 25th and Vine, he took her little bottle of Love Potion Number 9. All right. So the very first person I'm going to introduce you to here is a fundamental work every single human being must read before they die. It's written by a guy named Aristotle. And this is the Nicomachean Ethics. Again, unfortunate that we have such strange titles. I mean, if it was something like, and this is fire breath, everyone would remember. Like, have you read Fire Breath? No. I want to read it. Like, have you read the Nicomachean Ethics? You're like, oh, that's because he dedicated it to Nicomachus. Poor kid. Never named your kid Nicomachus.
I think that they're talking about this in Ferris Bueller when everybody's falling asleep.
Probably.
Funny.
Because this is like one of those things that they try to make you read like in high school, and no one really gets it. They all buy Cliff Notes.
Cool.
Okay. So this is from the very first chapter, if you want to write it on there. This is book 1, chapters 1 to 7. And this is really, really good stuff. So fasten your seatbelts. I want to start you right off with this because, again, I don't want to just lecture to you. I want you to have various forms of learning. But...
Say one thing.
Future students will thank me one day.
This is so much better. This is so much better. And but it'll vary it up, and then also I want you to kind of get hit by density first, and then we unpack it. Because otherwise, I say amazing things and nobody even cares. You're just like, what? So first, let's read this. So this is the beginning, book 1, chapter 1. Now, what I want you to do in this one is Aristotle is very dense. Remember, the quality of intelligence is penetration. It's not quantity. So what you're going to see is, when you start to read him, remember, he's also 400 years before Christ. This is BC 400 when he's writing. And again, you're kind of like, oh, they were all cavemen back then, You're like, but you'll see his writing style. It's like very, very dense, and then all of a sudden he jumps to things. So what I want you to do is, in each of these paragraphs, underline the main sentence. Who'd like to read this for us? Regina, you haven't read in a long time. And just go kind of slowly, just like actually understand it yourself.
Every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and pursuit, is thought to aim at some good. And for this reason, the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. But a certain difference is found among ends. Some are activities, others are products apart from the activities that produce them. Where there are ends apart from the actions, it is the nature of the products to be better than the activities. Now, as there are many actions, arts, and sciences, their ends also are many. The end of the medical art is health, that of shipbuilding a vessel, that of strategy victory, that of economics wealth. But where such arts fall under a single capacity, as bridle making and the other arts concerned with the equipment of horses fall under the art of riding, and this and every military action under strategy, in the same way other arts fall under yet others. In all of these, the ends of the master arts are to be preferred to all the subordinate ends, for it is for the sake of the former that the latter are pursued. It makes no difference whether the activities themselves are the ends of the actions, or something else apart from the activities, as in the case of the sciences just mentioned.
Go on, Sue.
If then there is some end of the things we do, which we desire for its own sake, everything else being desired for the sake of this, and if we do not choose everything for the sake of something else, for at that rate the process would go on to infinity, so that our desires would be empty and vain. Clearly, this must be the good and the chief good. Will not the knowledge of it then have a great influence on life? Shall we not, like archers who have a mark to aim at, be more likely to hit upon what is right? If so, we must try, an outline at least, to determine what it is, and of which the sciences or capacities it is the object. It would seem to belong to the most authoritative art, and that which is most truly the master art. And politics appears to be of this nature, for it is this that ordains which of the sciences should be studied in a state, and which each class of citizens should learn, and up to what point they should learn them. And we see even the most highly esteemed of capacities to fall under this. Example, strategy, economics, rhetoric. Now, since politics uses the rest of the sciences, and since, again, it legislates as to what we are to do and what we are to abstain from, the end of this science must include those of the others, so that this end must be the good for man. For even if the end is the same for a single man and for a state, that of the state seems at all events something greater and more complete, whether to attain or to preserve. Though it is worthwhile to attain the end merely for one man, it is finer and more godlike to attain it for a nation or for city-states. These, then, are the ends at which our inquiry aims, since it is political science in one sense of that term. Do you want me to keep going?
No. I just want you, first of all, to be like, never call them cavemen again. AD 400, it's pretty amazing. What do you think is the most important point in that? What is he trying to say?
The first paragraph, I would say, in all of these, the ends of the master arts are to be preferred to all the subordinate ends, for it is for the sake of the former that the latter are pursued.
Yeah, nailed it.
That's
Perfect. Perfect. And the principle of the superiority of an end is that for the sake of which. Do you understand what that means, that for the sake of which?
No.
Okay. I'll give you an example. Give me an example of that for the sake of which you do something.
Love.
Okay. How is love that for the sake of which you do something?
Because it's your end goal. So you stay up late taking care of your baby because you love him. You wake up early feeding him because you love him.
but for the sake of them, like, to grow up to be, like, healthy, happy humans.
Very good. The word he uses is telos. Telos. We'd have it in the word telephone. We'd have it in the word telegraph. Telos. It means end. If you want, you could say end goal, because that kind of helps you to understand it. The end goal of something is that for the sake of which we do something else. So if I want to get my MBA, I have to do my homework. And if I have to do my homework, then I have to brush my teeth, sleep, buy a new pen. And to do those things, I have to... So I could almost schedule my day. If I was, I don't know, like a curly blonde-haired girl, for example. I could almost be like, since I want to finish here, I need to do this thing, and to do that thing, I need to do this thing, and to do that thing, I need to do this thing. And suddenly I have my day mapped out. My goal at this day is to glorify God. But that's like not enough. I need to glorify God how? By being patient with Vince. So, to be patient with Vince, I need to first of all eat 2 pieces of cheesecake. Because if I have those pieces of cheesecake, it would be so much easier to be patient with Vince. And so, I willingly eat the cheesecake so that I can be patient with Vince, so that I can glorify God today. And at the end of the day, I can be like, I attained the end goal by attaining other things that were end goals, that were kind of like less end goals, but that were end goals because they were leading me to the end goal. So that if I were to say, I'm taking away your cheesecake, you'd be like, no. Like, why? I have to have it. Why? Because I have to have it in order to be next to Vince. Like, that cheesecake is an end. I'm fighting for that cheesecake because it's going to get me to where I got to go. Does it make sense? Now, he says that amongst end goals, there's a hierarchy. Some are better than others. You're like, how do you distinguish what's better? That for the sake of which other things are done. So the more that it is the end of things, the more things of which it's the end, the higher a good it is.
So, like he's saying, where it's better to attain things for a nation or for city-states and versus yourself.
Exactly. And why do you suppose that is?
Because it's aligned with love.
That's so
like,
funny. You're like, God.
No, I'm just like, you're like, I'm just going to eat this cheesecake because it needs to be finished. All that's doing is like for you, or because I love this cheesecake, so I'm going to eat the whole thing. But if it's like you're eating the cheesecake because it's going to help you be nice to Vince, then you're thinking about others.
Yeah.
Or like the progression
more
of
people.
Like the progression of society. So like if you do good things and you live out your full, like the fullest telos, or like the highest end goal that you could have, it benefits society.
Yep.
If everybody did that.
You guys got it. And so what you're looking for is you're saying, here, the further you go down on this pyramid, so if I go this way, I'm actually getting into more and more stuff. And if I go this way, I'm actually getting into higher or better things. What I mean by this is, let's suppose that you want to say, look, how important is it to brush your teeth? is brushing your teeth objectively better than taking care of your horse? And Aristotle's like, there's actually a way now for us to determine what's better. Is it better to take care of your horse or to run in the Olympics? Those are kind of like hard things, so I'll make it very simple. Is it better to run in the Olympics or to be a mom?
Be a mom.
So this is a way for him to determine what is good and what is not for you, objectively. It's a really radical thing. In those 2 paragraphs, what he's established is a principle for ethics. The more that something is that for the sake of which the other things are, the more important it is. So if I were to say the 4th highest end goals, I wake up in the morning and I brush my teeth. This is not a super important thing, but it is an important thing because I have an interview. And that interview is super important because I've got to get that job, which is absolutely critical for my family's peace. So therefore, because my family's peace is more important, I must get a job. So look how I descend now with commandment. And therefore I must get an interview. And therefore if you get in my way between me and my toothbrush, we're going to get in a fight. I will go to the store and I will buy a toothbrush. And I will be late, I will speed so that I can buy a toothbrush. Because I've got to nail that interview. Why does that suddenly, see that there's like an imperative in you? Where does that come from? The imperative comes because there's something that is better that's commanding your actions. The higher and a better a thing is a thing that actually has a broader command. Because to get that family's peace, you need a job. To get the job, you don't just need an interview, but you also need skills. So you've gone to school before you even had that interview. And you also have to have connections. So you had to get your references in place. And it's not just the job that you need for family peace. It's the job for life. So you've got to have these 3 things to get those 2 things, to get that one thing. See how this is working? And to get those, you have to brush your teeth, but you also have to go to school, and you get more and more and more and more and more and more and more. Mm-hmm. The point behind this is that the way that he's approaching this is to actually say that there are things in this world that are better. And when you gain them, you gain everything else besides. And so when people are like, no, dude, it's all up to you, you could be like, no, it's not just up to me. Because now I can start asking, what is the real, true end goal of life? If I do it, now let's go back to this. This is in 2. If there is then some end to the things we do, which we desire for its own sake, and if we do not choose everything for the sake of something else, clearly this must be the chief good. Will not the knowledge of it then have a great influence on life? If I knew why I was doing everything else, or why we should do everything else, wouldn't it not have a great influence on life? Shall we not, like archers who have a mark to aim at, be more likely to hit upon what is right? You guys see what he's doing? The only part that I didn't mention in this is this part here. The highest end goal, he says, I can't draw any more lines. He says that the highest end goal is something done for its own sake. No one sits there and brushes your teeth just because it's fine. Some people might do interviews, but no, interviews are to get a job. Now suddenly some people just have a job and think that's life. But if you're smart, you go beyond that and you're like, no, having a peaceful family. But like when you get to this level and you get to these higher levels, you kind of, people tend to stop. What's the point of my life to get to the Olympics? And after the Olympics, I can just die. You say that, right? Now I can die. I touched the Pope. Now I can die. I said Mass at the tomb of our Lord. Now I can die. Now, Master, let your servant go in peace. Your word has been fulfilled. It's like, well, what's happening there? I've done something for everything else I lived up to is that. And now I have one shot, one opportunity to lay hold of everything I ever wanted. He's talking about an end. So you built it up, you got your mom's sweater on, you had spaghetti, and now you got one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes. What's he saying? He's saying everything else is for the sake of that thing. So look what he's doing. He's like saying, okay guys, this is what you mean when I talk about something being objectively good or bad. I have a way of determining this. The word you can memorize, your word of the day, teleology. Tele, from telos, goal, ology. Teleology. I approach things by asking, is it an end? Is it worthy of doing it for its own sake? The more things, the more that it's worthy of standing on it for its own sake, the thing is the better that I should be striving for. So we could, in the end, kind of like talk about like, basically have like a few of these type of choices. I could say things that I want for their own sake. Give me a list of some things. What are some things that you're like, if I had that, I wouldn't want anything else. This is something I strive for. Great body. Thanks, that's a good one. Anyone else?
Big paycheck.
Money. Absolutely. If I had money, I would have everything.
Better car.
You got it.
Better
Possessions.
house.
Okay?
Marriage.
Marriage. Oh my gosh, the number of girls that if there's like, they marry a bum because they think they're going to be happier if they're just married. Mistake. You're much happier being single. No, it's all I'm made for. No, you're made for a good marriage. And your marriage is made for God. Have God, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so then you got God. He's another one. Okay, so now you're starting to see where a lot of people in life, depending on where you're at, they're like, hey, this is what's dominating me, because let's suppose it's possessions. Well then, what's necessary for possessions is a high-paying job. You're not working for a nonprofit. You're a fool. Why? Because you're living for possessions. You can't have possessions without a high-paying job. You get a high-paying job, I've got to get a great education. And to create a great education, I've got to sleep with the admissions officer. Hey, this was the movie Forrest Gump. Alas, which is why I've only seen the movie once, never seen it again. Remember the opening scene or craziness? The mom, I want Forrest in your school. That's so horrible. It's like writing a movie. That's why I never watched a movie. I think it's horrible. She sleeps with the principal. It's just terrible. It's a horribly put crass, gross scene that ruined an otherwise wonderfully innocent, kind of fun movie.
Is it in the book? Have you read the book?
No, I haven't watched it. After the movie, I'm not going to read the book. Okay, but you see, like, so now you're standing here and you're like, will you do it or won't you? And you're like, absolutely I will. Because I'm going to get into Harvard. If I get to Harvard, I'm going to be made for life. So what is that? It's like that, there was that thing in that movie, would you sleep with someone for $1 million? Think of all the good you could do. You just have to sell your soul. You guys remember that movie? It came out. It was probably like a B-roll movie. But
Was it older?
yeah, it's like, this would have been like 1992.
Is it the guy who like has his wife and then takes
Yeah,
money?
it is what it is.
Yeah, I've seen that one. it's called.
I mean, I have not seen that movie. That one I'm just like not even gonna watch.
Yeah.
But like the point is like, okay, you see what this is? I got to make decisions all day long. What are you making them for? This is a really cool way to dialogue. Even like when you're working with someone that's like not with God. What are you living for? You can ask them. What's your goal? What's life all about? I remember I sat down with a kid. He was the brother of one of my friends in college, and he was like, I am going to work at a bank. And I said, why? And he said, because of money. And I said, but what do you got money for? And he's like, to have money. And I was like, that's it? He goes, yeah. I never forget it because like it's rare you meet someone that's just that honest about it. But suppose your possession is, I gotta have a great body. Well then I have to have a vacation. And I have to have a tanning booth. And to have that, I've got to have a good job. But one that's flexible. So I become a flight attendant. So like these things are determining the decisions that I make right down here. And I have to eat right. So I eat right so that I can have a good job, so I can take a vacation, so I can have a great body. It's so funny, and this doesn't even mean it's bad. It's not bad. This is what's so cool. How would I know that that's not bad? Some people will be like, wait a second, it's fine to have a great body. Yeah, but what are your limits? Everyone's going to find it themselves, man. No. There's objective limits to this. If I can create this hierarchy, what if I made a pyramid and I was able to say, having a great body is an awesome end, absolutely essential, but it's not final. Meaning you have a great body for the sake of something else. Then I could say, your whole idea of having a great body, which commands your job, which commands your diet, which commands your house. No, I gotta have a house that has one of those things in it. And to get that house, it commands me stealing from my brother. The diet commands me having a huge amount of money to waste at Trader Joe's. My job, I need to be able to work out. Okay, I'm like, all of those things are fine in your life if that great body is for the sake of something even higher. Focus. Please turn it off. I know it's probably very distracting. That great body is for the sake of something higher. And I'll say that great body is for the sake of a family. In other words, you want to live to lead your family. But this is where the limits come in. Because if the great body is for the sake of living to lead your family, then there's times where you're not going to have the perfect body that you want. It's not the end goal. So now you impose limits the further down you are in order to achieve that higher one. And you don't live to lead a family as if that's the end goal, because you're leading a family in order to honor your Creator. And why do you honor your Creator? So, are there any limits to honoring your Creator? I would like to say no. So limitless, limit. So now I'm able to say, hey, look, this workout is, I cannot do the full thing on this workout because my family time impedes. You guys starting to see how this works? It's this hierarchy that I want you to see, the levels of things. But a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people will stop here. And what Aristotle is saying is, how do you dialogue with those people? How do you convince someone that going to SJI is better than going to Harvard? You have to say, well, what's your goal? Isn't that cool? If your goal is money and power and influence, then Harvard is better. But if your goal is different, then Harvard is worse. I say, don't go to Harvard. You'll lose something that you need. Okay, let's pass on to chapter 7 then. Just let him teach us. Who'd like to read this? Who would learn well if they read it themselves instead of listening? Anyone? I know I like that. If I listen, I kind of tune out.
Do you want me to keep reading it?
I can read, but I have to reset this in 15 seconds.
I'll start there.
Okay, you start the first paragraph.
Let us again return to the good we are seeking and ask what it can be. It seems different in different actions and arts. It is different in medicine, in strategy,